Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab podcast, where, as always, you can find show notes and listen to all previous episodes at autoimmunerehab.com or just search Autoimmune Rehab wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, now with no further ado, let's get started with today's topic, which I feel like is one of the most important ones, yet it's one that is starting to be talked about more, but it's not being talked about as much as I feel like it should be talked about. And that is how to improve your metabolic health and why metabolic health is so important for autoimmune conditions, among other things. So, a lot of us are well aware that metabolic health is important when it comes to things like cholesterol and heart health, preventing heart attacks, and a lot of other things. But your metabolic health can also directly affect your immune system as well. And they're starting to discover it can affect all other kinds of aspects of your body and your health. And in fact, I have read several studies that say that poor metabolic health was one of the big reasons that a lot of people died or ended up in the hospital with COVID. So, metabolic health is really, really a must. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already have an autoimmune condition, at least one, and maybe you have more than one. And or you suspect that you have one anyway. Maybe you haven't been officially diagnosed. So the reality is, to some degree, it's a little too late. I don't want to say it's completely too late because I feel like everybody can always make changes and improve their health. But you likely already have poor metabolic health if you're listening to this. So let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons why a lot of us have poor metabolic health, what we can do about it, and how that can impact your immune system and ultimately autoimmune conditions. So the statistics now show that less than 7% of the US, and I would say it's probably pretty similar in Canada and a lot of other first world civilized countries, we have horrible metabolic health, and less than 7% of the population has ideal metabolic health. So that means if you walk into a room with 100 people, you're lucky if maybe 7 of them have good metabolic health and the other 93 or 94 do not. So why is that? Well, there's a variety of different reasons, but one of the reasons I feel like is the fact that we come from a healthcare system where the healthcare system in general doesn't pay any attention to our food, and the food system doesn't pay any attention to our health. And so as a result, a lot of us have developed addictions for cravings, things like that, and we have developed habits of eating a lot of things that are really not good for our metabolic health. I was reading another statistic the other day saying that 80% of all food at the grocery store has sugar added to it. And a lot of that is because of our taste buds and because of what we have come to expect. But the reality is that sugar is really, really not good for your health, especially in those larger quantities. And increased intake of sugar is, as you can imagine, one of the main things that's leading to poor metabolic health. But it's also other things like processed foods, seed oils, not getting enough fruits and vegetables, just not having a good, healthy, balanced diet and in general, and those are leading to really horrible metabolic health. The other reason too is that they say that the average person should be moving a minimum of 6,000 steps per day, if not up to 10,000 if at all possible, especially if you're trying to control your metabolic health and your weight. And a lot of us just sit around all day and we don't get that kind of exercise and that kind of movement. And so that's contributing to poor metabolic health. And then, our healthcare system that focuses more on pill popping and quick solutions that over the long term aren't really the greatest for our overall health is one of the main reasons we have horrible metabolic health. And type 2 diabetes is basically already an epidemic in this country, and it's getting even worse. And that is actually considered an autoimmune condition. I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but it actually is. And type 1 is an autoimmune condition as well, but that's obviously different because people are typically born with it, or maybe they develop it for different reasons when they're younger. And that one's just a whole different animal. So we're going to focus on type 2 diabetes. And the traditional healthcare system is really failing people when it comes to treating it. And our healthcare system literally can't sustain the numbers of people that are predicted to get it within the next few years or so. So it's really, really important, especially if you already have an autoimmune condition, which I'm going to assume that you do if you're listening to this. Like I said, that if you don't already have diabetes, if that's not your autoimmune condition, so if you're listening to this and you have thyroid, Hashimoto's or Graves', or you have MS or some other thing, that you really work on improving your metabolic health and your blood sugar and glucose levels and try to control blood sugar spikes so that you can make sure that you don't develop diabetes in addition to what you've already got. So, what are some of the things that we can do about it? Well, one thing you can do about it is to control your diet. I personally have been on a mission the last few months to completely eliminate sugar. So, not only do I no longer eat cookies, cakes, candy, ice cream, things that obviously have the sugar, I've really started cutting out even ketchup and dressings and even not eating bacon that's been cured in sugar. In other words, just really trying to eliminate all sugar from my diet. Now, when I say that, I don't mean things that turn into sugar or things that have a natural sugar. So, like, I'm still eating fruit and I'm still eating some honey or maple syrup or stevia or xylitol or things like that. But I'm not eating any white sugar, brown sugar, cane sugar. You get the idea. And I have found that it has already really improved my health. Maybe not metabolic health so much because I'm still working on that and it's still a work in progress. And somebody who has Hashimoto's, it's always a constant battle. But it definitely has helped with things like my knee pain and my energy level and a lot of other things like that. And so that's, just something that has to have happen. And as a health coach, if you really, really are struggling to reach your health goals and you need some assistance in being able to stick to a healthy diet, that's something that I specialize in and would be happy to help you. I do offer free consultation discovery sessions, and we'll include the link to sign up for one with this podcast. But the gist of it is you've got to change your diet, you've got to get moving more. And then for a lot of us that have autoimmune conditions, this isn't going to be good enough. So you're going to need some additional things to jumpstart that. And one thing you'll want to do is get an evaluation of where you're deficient in certain vitamins and minerals and try to work to improve those. You'll also want to try to do some things like trying to balance your hormones and get some additional aids and help. So personally, I have a line of essential oils and essential oil-based supplements, as well as a very unique collagen that is not like any other on the market, that is designed to help assist with metabolic health as well as with improving, like your gut health, your sleep, your brain health, things like that. And so I will link to that in the show notes as well. And if you would like to have a more in-depth conversation about some of the things that I have been taking and doing to help improve my metabolic health, then I would be more than happy to talk with you about that. I did do a separate episode about how I finally started losing weight with Hashimoto's. So that would be another episode for you to go back in the archives of this podcast and listen to that. And just know that you really can do it. Yes, it's hard work. And yes, it will require you to give up some things that maybe you really like eating and drinking and to change your lifestyle. But would you rather just continue to get sicker and sicker with multiple autoimmune conditions and maybe even worse, end up on kidney dialysis, which my dad has actually now been on kidney dialysis for just over 3 years, and it's horrible. So I do not recommend that to anybody. And really think that that is going to be the future for a lot of people if they don't realize and shape up once things start going downhill for them with the diabetes, the blood sugar, other things like that. You've really got to control it before it gets too late. Then I feel like the other thing that also can be done is if you really try to work with the doctors, try to go more functional medicine route. And I think a lot of doctors, even the non-functional ones, are starting to wake up to the reality that just the pills that they're giving people are really not helping people's metabolic health, and they need to start working more with health coaches and nutritionists, things like that, to really help people improve healthcare and their healthy lifestyle. Otherwise, things are just going to continue to get worse and worse. So anyhow, this is, I realize, just a little bit of a rant, but I wanted to come on and share with you why I feel like improving your metabolic health is so important, and also be quite honest and transparent. I knew that trying to control blood sugars and things was important to me, and it's something I've been working on for the last 5 or 6 years, but it wasn't until about the last 6 months or so that I really started to realize the connection between metabolic health and autoimmunity, and the fact that my metabolic health is not as good as I thought it was, especially given that I still have thyroid antibodies. And so I've really been actively working to improve that, like I said, and encourage you to do the same. So hopefully you found some good tidbits here, and hopefully if you really need some help, you'll reach out to me and let's have a conversation about it. Take care, and I look forward to sharing with you soon on another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab podcast. If you liked this episode and found it helpful, if you would please rate me in iTunes or consider writing a review, and share this episode with anybody else that you feel like needs to hear it. Thanks, take care, and have a great day.